All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you. And do you prefer to go by Ali or Alejandra?
Ali, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thanks everybody again for being here. The Foothill Photography Department, in coordination with the Associated Students of Foothill College, are super excited to welcome Mexican freelance documentary photographer Ali Rajal here to present an artist talk around her career and work in honor of Latin American Heritage Month. Her insightful, thoughtful work captures the intricate connections between human beings, their environment, and belief systems, incorporating themes such as climate change, drug policies, gender, religion, and violence. Her work has been featured in Der Spiegel, El País, ESPN, Gato Pardo, NPR, National Geographic, PA de Página, The Guardian, The Washington Post, oh my God, Vice, Wall Street Journal. I could just kind of keep going, I would say. And again, we're just so excited to have you here to present your work and just engage with us about your trajectory as a documentary photographer.
Thank you, Judith, for having me. And I'm really excited, happy, nervous, everything, but of being here. And I just hope to, like, I don't know, to talk and give you something that is interesting to you. So feel free to ask whatever you want to. And I'm here just to help and hopefully make something interesting and funny also. But yeah,
I'm going
so
to
thank
quickly
you.
add, if you all have questions, let's hold the questions until the end of the talk so we can make sure we get to hear from her. Okay.
Yeah. You tell me when to
Go
start.
for it. Share your screen
Okay.
and take it away.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay. So I did it Canva because now Canva is everything apparently. Makes life easier. Okay. Can you see my screen? Yep. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. I
So
muted myself.
no, it's fine. So well, as you just said, my name is Alejandra Rajal. I have been working as a freelancer, I think for the last almost 8 years now. So all my career has been as a freelancer. I have never been a staff. Um, and I'm just gonna show you a bit of my work. And wait, yeah, there you go. So first, I just wanted to say a few things about me. As you said, I'm from Mexico. I was born and raised here, and I'm a Taurus because I was born in May. I love nature. I'm a dog person, but for some reason, cats also kind of like me and they just get closer. But I don't know. I don't speak cat language, so it's weird. It's just funny. And as a photographer, I don't know. I guess because you've heard a lot of talks, but we kind of like to decompress because especially when you're doing documentary and photojournalism, sometimes you get to see a lot of things that can be a bit heavy. So my decompression therapy is climbing. I love rock climbing. It's very good. I'm also the eldest daughter of a single mom, and I will say I love to read. I love to read, but it's something more that I just like to get books. And I tell myself that I'm gonna read them, but of course it takes a longer time. I'm not that type of person that says I read 40 books in 1 year. No, I'm trying to do one per month. That's my goal. And I've always dreamed and loved about traveling. It was kind of difficult coming from a family with a single mom because we faced a lot of like financial hardships. And I'm telling you all this because when I'm showing you my work, I want you to understand some of the places where I'm coming from when I'm photographing and how I approach the topics I talk about. And the other thing I want to tell you about me is that I'm a very curious person. I really like to learn about everything. I always have questions, and I always tell my friends that I cannot have a visual memory, but I cannot remember a lot of random facts about everything. I could talk about the Kardashians, but I also could talk about, I don't know, um, Northern Africa, like I think I'm very curious, so I have gathered a lot of information. Some of it might be a bit useless, but everything is a great topic for conversation at the end of the day. Here in Mexico, as in the US, I guess people have different ways of presenting themselves when they come from a place. I was born in Puebla. In Puebla, we call ourselves Poblanos. This is a little bit about Puebla. It's a place that was founded as a colonial city. Pretty much Puebla was created by the Spaniards because they needed a middle place for families to stay while they went to work to the Mexico City. So when the Spaniards conquered Mexico, they first arrived to the port of Veracruz, and then they found Tenochtitlan, that is Mexico City now. And the path was so long that were just like, we should have a city for the families. So they created Puebla. In that sense, Puebla, I feel that has also influenced how a lot of people from Puebla are. They're very Catholic driven. People are very conservative, and it's a city that is very nice, a very beautiful city. I love it. We're close to the two volcanoes that are big, Popocatépetl and Iztaccíhuatl. And also we're very proud of our gastronomy, like chiles en nogada, mole poblano, and also we have a lot of agriculture. For example, the very well-known marigold flower that we call cempasúchil is also grown here in Puebla, in other states too, but Puebla is one of the major states that grows cempasúchil. So right now, so now I live in Mexico City. I've been living here for the last 5 years, well, 4 years, almost five. And I don't know if you know, but it's the largest city of North America. The population is very dense and it has been growing and growing. And it has been also interesting living here because it has taught me a lot about where everything started when it comes to Mexico. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. And now to the part of photography. So a bit of history of why I became a photographer, when I became a photographer, how I became a photographer. So trying to answer your questions, a lot of my interest in photography started looking through these magazines, Life magazines, National Geographic. I remember being in my room and, before internet, I didn't have Life, but then I discovered Life in internet. And I remember having like National Geographic magazine and looking through it and being like, wow, like learning so much and traveling to these places through these photos. And then with the internet, I discovered what Life magazine was. And when I started with photography, I even thought Life magazine was still happening. And then I discovered it was not. So that was a bummer. But what happened was that it showed me a lot of realities I didn't understand, like I didn't know of. So for me, it was very interesting seeing it, especially because, as I said, I grew up with a lot of financial strain. I don't know, like I have never traveled to other countries until I was like 23. So, and that's like actually something that like motivated me to, seek to travel to other places. So this was my first camera. It was a Canon PowerShot, and I squeezed the life out of this thing.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, I used to take it everywhere, take photos of everything. And I remember I got it when I was like, I think like 17 years old. And I took it to I did an exchange year program because I was able to get a scholarship, and I really, really was very like adamant of going to other countries that didn't speak Spanish because I wanted to learn English. So I was lucky enough to get accepted into a program in England. So I spent a year there where I could like learn English and study my career because I studied advertising and design. I didn't study photography. Um, and I was able to go there because I had, the scholarship. But one thing about this scholarship is that they gave me an allowance to have breakfast, I remember. And that allowance for a student is a lot. And I decided to use that allowance instead of having like a very big breakfast just to save some money. And I got my first reflex camera when I was like 22, I think. And it was a Rebel XT3. And it was also cheaper because in Mexico, technology is a bit more expensive. So I was very happy, and I was, this was my photography, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love my composition. I love how like focus everything. So I was like living my life with that camera, and I used to take it everywhere and start to photograph more and more. When I came back to Mexico, I remember telling my professor, like, I want to become a professional photographer, and my dreams were crushed. And he said, like, that should be a hobby, not your profession. So, um, unluckily at that time, I was very insecure of myself, and I took his words. And I decided not to pursue photography. I left university. I enrolled myself like into an internship, a local advertising agency, and started to work. And I was very miserable. And it didn't last more than 5 months, I think. And I resigned before my birthday. And I said, no, I want to become a photographer. Like, I know this is what I want to do. Because what happened was that during my exchange year, I had like a glimpse of what life could be in that sense, that this could be a job. And I didn't know it was something that was possible. So I didn't have connections. I didn't have a career. I didn't have a lot of things, you could say, but I had a dream. So I think that was that, and the support of my family. My mom was like, okay, like, I support you. I don't understand. Like, they didn't even understand what was a documentary photographer, you know? So it was interesting also, like, trying to explain to my friends and family what was what I wanted to do. So long story short, I teach for a couple of years at a local high school where I started. I teach like different subjects to raise money for my professional camera because I didn't have a full frame camera. And I ended up buying my first full frame camera. I think I was like 27, and it was a 6D with a 24-17 lens. So that was the camera that told me for my first years as a photographer. And one day, here in Mexico, this is something that I wanna like exhort you guys to do, is sometimes you can find luck in small places. And I have heard about this saying that says that sometimes like you get lucky, but also because you're prepared, and when you're prepared and you have worked hard towards something and you find that opportunity, everything matches. So I went to this place called Encuentro Fotográfico de México, which is like a tiny festival that happens in my hometown. Um, I was lucky enough that that time, for some reason, there was a couple of collectives, one from Canada and one from the US coming, and they were giving like portfolio reviews. So I was just there, and they reviewed my portfolio. I didn't really even have a project to present, and they told me like, "Oh, we see something in you," like probably it was just like to be nice, but I like convinced myself that I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this, I can work. And I remember one of the persons who reviewed my portfolio was Natalie Kaysar. She's a photographer in New York. And she said like, oh, that's good that you chose to be a photographer. We need more women photographers. And I was like, yes, we need more women photographers. I should like keep working hard towards it. So what I'm trying to say is that this place was an opportunity that also gave me friendships and people I know till this day, and also a lot of learnings. Because afterwards, I learned that yes, I wanted to do something, but I had to work really hard for it. It was it's not just because I want to. And also a lot of inspiration because you see like all the things that people do, you feel inspired and you want to add to it. So that was a big lesson for me, and I just wanted to share you how everything started to fall in place, if we may. But it didn't fall, like it didn't happen from one day to another. And well, I just wanted to give you with like something that I have learned during these years is to learn to trust your gut, and learning that it's something that you cannot explain, it's something that you feel. But the more you start like understanding that feeling that comes within you, you understand that is the way for sure to, it will show you the path, like it will show you the way you have to go. And sometimes our gut can tell us something, but we can be afraid to take that leap. So I think it's important to becoming aware of that feeling and trying to lean into it, to not be afraid to jump and go out of your comfort zone. So now to the photography part, I wanted to start with personal projects because that's where everything starts, like stories starting our own backyards. This is my very, very, very first project that I'm calling Cultus. Cultus, as I said, because I was telling you about myself and how I grew up. I grew up in Puebla, that is a very conservative place. So I remember going to like trying to photograph everything I could or any small opportunity. And one of those was the Holy Friday procession in my hometown. Um, I remember going and photographing the event and then seeing these men who were hooded. And I was like, what is that? Like, I don't understand what is going on. And a lot of people, I could hear comment people saying like, oh no, those are fanatics. Oh no, like a lot of people didn't even know who they were. So that brought a lot of questions in me. And I decided to dig in and to trying to understand who they were, what they were doing, what was happening. And then I understood something. And it was about a history that was erased in Mexico. As you may know or not, in Mexico, we went through, after the conquest, we went through the evangelization. Spaniards are Catholic mostly. So the crown were like, oh, we're gonna, you know, um, make Catholicism the faith of this place. So the way they did it was through confraternities. The confraternities were religious groups that what they were trying to do was in a more friendly way to welcome people with it to their religion. So what happened was that people, the neighborhood had a confraternity in their church. They went. It was only males actually at the beginning, and what they went to the church and they just took part of something of a group. It was like a social thing, but also since the conquest happened, politics and religion were mixed, so they also used to administrate places like hospitals or schools, and everything was like a bit, everything was in this small bowl. And what happened was that at the end of the 1800s in Mexico, there was something that is called Reforma laws. The Reforma laws were created to separate religion and politics, and to avoid having them together. So when that happened, the president at the time, that was Benito Juarez, he said, okay, but I'm going to forbid processions, I'm going to forbid brotherhoods, I'm going to forbid confraternities. So suddenly the reason why everyone was a Catholic was forbidden, and people just stayed being Catholic. And somehow people kind of forgot how they became Catholic. That was through the confraternities. So I found out that this confraternity in particular was founded in the in the middle of the 1500s, and they closed at the end of the 1800s because of this loss. And in 1993, they decided to reopen the confraternity. So it's interesting because we're talking about like a collective erase history thing. And a lot of people forgot the history about these groups, and now there were this group in particular trying to bring this back to a place that was probably like not going to be very welcoming of a lot of like the ancient ways, because these groups were very challenging in some parts. In this story in particular, I faced a lot of challenges. One was that it's a very conservative group. The other is a patriarchal group. It's run by men, and the other is a very hierarchical group. So there are different levels in it. And it was interesting because it really taught me a lot. It taught me to be present and commit myself to the story. It taught me also that monotony is a great opportunity to be creative, because I've even though my family is very Catholic, I have never been in so many masses, you know. So I spend a lot of time in the church, and also I found that there are symbols everywhere within that monotony. Like, you have to start like looking to other things, and also something interesting, and that always I will be grateful for, is that honestly lead us to believe in unusual situations. What I mean with this is that I arrived to this place and I had to talk with the big brother, they call him like that, and say, hey, my name is Alejandra and I'm a photographer and I really want to do a story about this confraternity. I want to understand, I want to learn, I want to, you know, and it was interesting because uh, as I said, this place is, even though the confraternity now is open to women are only like in the shower, like they sing and they sell, like some food. But men are the ones who are behind everything. So it was interesting. They just gave me that trust. Eventually, I spent 2 years photographing them. And here are a few photos of you can see of them. The hooded is called capirote, and it's to do penance. So when they put it, they kind of like absorb themselves and they're like within them. So they don't have to get distractions from the exterior. It's just to have a more comfortable way of doing penance. I wouldn't say comfortable necessarily because it's quite like weird and feeling having it on it. So I spent a lot of times in that church looking at, small things they were doing to bring the confraternity activities. There are different, rehearsals they have because they're rehearsed during the year to get ready for the Holy Week. Also, I was able to go a bit behind the scenes when they were doing the masses. And eventually I was able to get inside, places that were a bit more difficult when they were changing to get their apostles' costumes and everything. So it was interesting. It was a very big group. It was probably like 100 people, but also like the main group, it was probably like 20. And here's like something I wanted to share in general about, doing the way I work, or how I've learned to work. And one is my notebook. I take small notebooks when I do my personal assignments, and I just write and do interviews and transcript it eventually into the computer. But like I try to make notes. Maybe some of them doesn't make much sense, but it's just to keep track, because sometimes there's so much information and you like you don't know, like you're learning about it on the go. So I try to write everything. And for example, here are a few notes of my first procession with the confraternity, where funny enough, like we had an earthquake. So people started to pray more, and it was very interesting to, get those feelings. Also, like my first interview with the big brother. And here are, for example, more new notes about like keeping track, because there were so many groups that I had to keep track. So I used to put like essay number one, essay number two, essay number three, essay, because I went so many times. And every time maybe I met someone new, or maybe I heard something like a song I didn't hear before, or I saw like I don't know, like something visually that attract my attention. So for me, notes, I wrote here that notes are everything but pretty, but I do try to put a lot of passion in them, and I can scratch and ask questions like, this is my raw thoughts, my train of thoughts. So it doesn't have to be pretty. And as you can see, my writing is not pretty. I'm a left-handed, so. And the other is doing research. I tried to do research about, confraternities and groups. I couldn't find much, but something that really had my attention was that they couldn't have members from other racial groups when they started. So at the beginning, confraternities were divided like in Spaniards, indigenous people, and Africans, because they brought slaves from Africa. So at the beginning, it was like that. It was very segregated. Eventually, they started to notice it was not easy for them, so they started to unite them. But of course, there was always, someone having a higher role in them. But yeah, it was interesting because at the beginning they used to say no, confraternities are very welcoming and friendly, but they promoted ideas that were dividing the population. So now they have evolved a bit, but still like there's always room for improvement, I guess. And it's good for me. It was important to know this because a lot of Mexicans really don't know about it, and I really wanted to bring the information, not to say, oh, this is bad or this is good, but just to say, this is history, this is how we became Catholics. We have to know how it happened. Then afterwards, like I also work on how I want to tell the story because I had so many information and I was like, should I do this linear? Like, should it be like the Holy Week, just like Thursday, Friday, or maybe per group? And I was like, back and forth about how to tell the story. And also this depends on how you're gonna do it because if you're working with an editor, like it doesn't really matter, they will decide for you. But yeah, like this is how I was trying to say it for my website, let's say. So yeah. And at the end of the day, like I was lucky enough to find the right moment on the right person, and I pitched this to an editor from National Geographic, and it got published there in the website. You can see it there in the website. I think it will be easier, but they did a pretty nice story about it. And I thought it was going to be only a photo gallery, but they decided to send a writer and they explained the whole situation. So I was very, very happy, especially because I could came back and tell, the confraternity, hey, the story was published and people are like knowing, your history and the group. So I felt very happy, especially because it was about my hometown and such. And this is another project. This is a more newer project I have personal. It's ongoing. It's called the Changing Wave. This is about climate change. So the project started in Quintana Roo while I was traveling with my mom. I have heard news about this macroalgae called sargasso that was arriving to the beach, and suddenly the turquoise beaches of, the Caribbean were all smelly and brown. So I really was interested because I have been to Cancun a few times. I have a friend that a really close friend that lives there. So when I arrived, I noticed that the story has some challenges. One was the topic was very wide because what is climate change, how it happens, like should I focus on the macro elevate or the financial impacts or the tourism or the families. It's a very complex area. There are too many angles. So I was a bit overwhelmed when I started the story, and I still think the story has room for a lot of small stories in it. Also, the other thing is the communication is kind of difficult because some of the areas I have worked, there is not much internet. Siancam Biosphere, I will show you a bit of this place, but like I didn't have connection at all. So unless the person leaves that area, you can, write to them. Otherwise, you have to go there. And finally, it's a very expensive place to report because of all the north of Quintana Roo is very receives a lot of international tourism. Is expensive. You have to use a car to transport yourself. The accommodation is expensive. The food is expensive. So I was a bit sad about it, but I was trying to make it work because as I said, I was trying to use the contacts I have, and luckily I have a very close friend that lives there, and she used to lend me her car. And, I was just trying to do a bit of this and that in the north part of Quintana Roo. And I was lucky enough that for this project, I tried so many places, to place it, to get someone to assign me this story, but it was not happening because as I said, it was like too wide, too expensive. And I saw an opportunity through a grant that I was lucky enough to get. That is the GFX, the Fujifilm grant. So the Fujifilm gave me the money to be able to continue this personal project. And they lent me also, they lent me their medium format cameras, which I was super excited about. And the learnings I had in in this project I'm doing is about, lighting and daytime are codependent here. The sun rises very, very fast, so lighting is not always great. So I used to work before, like between 4 a.m. and 9 a.m. And then after 4:30 p.m., 5 p.m., because lighting is horrible in those between. Also, is that it's okay to take your time. No one is chasing you. I feel that with this project in particular, I love it so much there. It's so beautiful, and I love the sea that I just feel that I have to do something, and everything is like running, and and I pressure myself a lot for this one. So even with the grant, I still feel that I need more to do. So I have to be more compassionate with myself in that sense, and try to leave room for the project to breathe and to retake, and and as I said, learn to adapt. Everything will change. Climate change changes all the time. It's like a wave. That's why I decided to call the project the changing wave, because every year is so different. Some years there's a lot of sargasso, and some years it's like barely some. But it has definitely changed the place. So my first thought when I started this project was to just dive into a lot of information. I read like crazy, a lot of, papers and documents about how the sargasso was like changing. And there were a lot of like views from the corals, reefs, and also, I don't know, the coastal parts, others, the community, other certain areas of the Caribbean, maybe like República Dominicana, Cuba, like there were so many places to look at, and I was just trying to take everything and make sense out of it. So I decided that the first thing I had to do was understand the territory. So we're talking about the Caribbean, and I was going to focus at this moment, in this time. I would like to do eventually in other places, but in the Mexican Caribbean, the place I know, Quintana Roo. That's the state that is being affected the most. So also understand that within this territory, Quintana Roo is divided into, you have the tourist part, and all the media were covering Sargasso as they're messing up with the vacation, like the holidays of people. And that was the main focus. It was like, oh my gosh, the economies are going down because people don't want to go to these smelly beaches, and there were so many more problems under all that, but the focus was on that. And I I was very frustrated about that. So I decided to focus on the southern part of Quintana Roo, which is more underdeveloped. And in that area in particular is the biosphere of Siancán, that is the second biggest forest region after the Amazonas. So I was lucky enough to go there, and then I was talking with the fishermen who were, having a lot of issues when it came to the sargasso, because it accumulates a lot, because there are not big hotels there, no one is cleaning it, and it just get accumulates and accumulated and accumulated for months. And within that accumulation, always also happens that a lot of rubbish arrives, um, and it comes from the cruise ships, because there's a lot of cruise ships. So they just throw their garbage at the sea, and it just ends up there. And while talking with the fishermen, I found this family. It was a very beautiful family. It is a very beautiful family. And It was a family of three generations. There were the grandparents, the parents, and the kids. And they were living there. They started living there, like the grandparents were living there for years before, but the parents and the kids moved there during the pandemic to, run from the virus. So they were kind of like secluded there. They were just, fishing, um, being with the environment. So I decided that the best angle to tell the story was through the stories of this family and how they were seeing their backyard change, and how everything was impacted them, maybe in their mental health, maybe in their perception of the place they know was home. So I start to go back to them every time I could. I traveled there with the grant 3 times, so I was going back and back for longer periods of time to spend time with them and trying to, understand how was life there for them. And also something that I decided to do was to make a collaboration. So because I there's no places to sleep there, there's no running water. I have to like travel there and spend it all day there, and then come back because that area in particular represents risk, not only in the communication part, but also there's a lot of drug trafficking going there. So you have to be quite careful because a a lot of cocaine gets dropped there and people go, and you have to, like, you don't want to get run into people who like think you're a problem. So I had the permission. I had the permission to get in, but also I had to leave to avoid putting myself at risk, especially because I didn't have any, cell phone signal or whatever. So I gave them some disposable cameras to every member of the family, and I asked them if they could just also take photos while I was not there. I would like to, see how they saw their world, because something that I noticed was they look a lot to the sky and the birds that were passing by, and things that maybe I don't understand because I don't live there. Here's a small video of them when we were going for fishing, and they just fished with a spear. They just like throw themselves in the sea and start fishing. And as you can see, all that the sea looks a bit muddy because of the sargasso. And at the end, we got to exhibit some of the photos in Japan with the Fujifilm grant. And that made me really happy. I still feel that I really want to do more with the story. So I stay it ongoing because I plan to keep going back. Now the family has moved from there. The place has changed. The place they were taking care of recently, they were asked to vacate, so it's a complicated situation. So they got divided, and I'm hoping to, retake connection with them and see how things are going now. And now to the science stories, or that's a saying in the US, right? The hustle and bustle. So for this part, I wanted to just present you the brief. I'm gonna show you 3 different briefs of how like the assignment came. So this was from an editor. She wrote to me this. I thought of a journey through the metro for you, with commuters, raiders, beggars, alleged ghosts, and Aztec gods. Once in the middle of all madness with squealing tires through the open main traffic arteries of Mexico City. The metro as a symbol for a whole country. We would love to have a photo documentary highlighting these aspects of the story. Do you think this will be possible to photograph this together with our correspondent for a few days? So the interesting thing about the subway in Mexico City is that it's forbidden to photograph with professional equipment. So I told that to the editor, and I was like, okay, I have these photos I've taken, but I have permission because, our now president, she was reopening the line that fell. And I don't know if you know, but in Mexico City, one of the lines fell, and it was like a lot of people died in that accident. It was a very terrible accident. So I had a previous photos of them, and I tried to figure out how to make this assignment work. So I used another equipment that was not considered professional. and I was able to do the assignment, you know. And here's the result. Here are the photos I took. I always like to do like a personal edit to show what I saw, because the Mexico City subway literally is the thing that connects all the city. It's a very well designed system. It runs for long hours and it carries a lot of people from different parts. Also, I try to show this. This is the place where the train fell, and this is one of the girls who survived. Unfortunately, her sister died, and these are the scars that she now has to carry with herself after the accident. Also, the system right now has been very criticized because it's having problems. For example, we even, like, I was with a correspondent and riding the subway, and we suddenly had the power went off. So the subway couldn't move. And I don't know, I just found this photo, like the experience, like I saw this man and he was like so tired looking, like it was like the end of the day and he just wanted to get home. But also at the same time, you see these places, people just meet in the stations, and I don't know, Mexicans are very affectionate people, so we just speak with a few couples who just meet before they leave for work, and it's also like that beauty, of human connection before and after work. Also, something that happens in the city is that the subway has a section that is only for women. And so all the subways in Mexico City, all the trains have only women section. So I took a photo of one of the students who recently went to one of the feminist march. And I decided to make like small compositions to show, a bit of everything. And this is where the story was published. It was a German newspaper. And it was very, very fun. I learned a lot of things. And this is the second brief. Um, um, I'm reaching out because I love to commission you for still life photography for a common print issue theme on futures, where we are imagining what futures might be possible in a world filled with dialogy. Or art director, the vision for this year issue is imaginative, fantastical, and a tad bit psychedelic, which we think your work could fit well into. We are especially drawn to your intentional work surrounding cannabis and social activism. The scope will be roughly 3 shots, and they will need to be completed by July 1st. It is a critical piece about GMO weed and the dichotomy of marijuana equity and pharmaceuticalization. So I have been covered drug policies for a long time. I started with legalization of marijuana. I covered it for 2 years. Um, this is an example of when you have some previous work and people can take from that and try to assign you stories because they trust that you have access, that you have knowledge. And this is the photo they saw, and they were like, "We want this." And it's funny because they thought this photo I did, and it was like an offering from a protest. So so it's interesting because I told them like I can do a still life. Like luckily I studied advertising and commercial photography in that sense. But yeah, I didn't do that. Like it's very like I can do it in real life because in Mexico we do a lot of offerings. This was an offering to Pachamama, to the Mother Earth, Mother Nature, with marijuana leaves outside the Senate. So I started to do a lot of like, research, how I'm going to approach this story. And it was fun going back to, the studio and trying to set up something. And this was the end result. So I was very, very happy with it. I was lucky enough that I know the right people who can guide me because I told the editor, like, I can try to get like cannabis, but it's a weird situation, like legally, Mexico right now is in a gray area. So I was able to do it because I know people who have permissions to grow marijuana and who can give me the marijuana. So I'm not the one who's like trafficking drugs. So it was an interesting story to tell but yeah. And then I tried to, my main idea was to just like say I know the story was about the futures, But for me, the future was about, coming one with nature and understanding like everything is just the same. Like we just decided to stigmatize a plant because of a lot of reasons that have nothing to do with the main reason people say. So yeah, and of course the color palette and everything was something that I feel that could add on to this. And this is how it ended up looking, the story. It was called Custom Heights. And I really, really like this one. It's one of my favorites assignments I have done. And then this is the third brief. This was last year. I am the photo editor of an independent left-wing weekly newspaper from Switzerland. We also publish a small magazine every 2 months with an in-depth approach to a topic. The next one is about the water problems of megacities. The story is told on the basis of Mexico City. Do you have the time and would you like to take the pictures for us? We need a total of about 10 different pictures of different situations, such as laboratory, axolotl, sinking city, person in water, stress, etc. I found your portfolio via Blink and found your work very nice and will fit very well for a picture series in Amazing. I look forward to hearing back from you as soon as possible. So a few things about these emails. Something that I have learned is trying to get my portfolio everywhere I can. Like honestly, Blink, I haven't used it like in a long time. And I was like, whoa, you found me in Blink? Like I haven't like checked that one. And after that, of course, my Blink is updated. But yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, like people can really find you everywhere. And then the other thing that jumped me was the axolotl because I have never taken photos of an animal before, so I was a bit nervous, and I really wanted to do something like the thing is like always try to challenge myself to do something that is within what I want to do, like I didn't want to reproduce something that has been done already, and that happened to me also with marijuana in general. I always look at the photos to see, and I noticed like oh, it's always the same background, it's always the same poses, So I was like trying to push myself to do something different, something that I was happy with and was a reflection of the way I see the world. And I decided to start like I do Pinterest a lot. So I was like, how do you like photograph an amphib and how like because they are in water, but at the same time they're not. And the axolotl in particular, it looks better when it's in water because of his little flaps here in his ears. Otherwise, it looks like it doesn't reflect, properly. And I think I was like trying to figure out how. And I was lucky enough that here's the thing, always ask for help. I speak with a friend and he's a great photographer, Luis Antonio Rojas, actually. Maybe you know him. He was in Eddie Adams. He has been a few times. I told him like, dude, you have worked a lot on the ajolotl. I am doing this story about water in Mexico, and I have to do this. I know you have done the photo before. Like, give me some guidelines, like the do's and don'ts of lighting or whatever, And he helped me. He really helped me, and we spent 4 hours trying to get the photo. I told him like my vision, and he was like a great assistant. He was like, holding that reflector, and this was the final photo. So I was very, very happy with it because it really reflected my vision about how I wanted to tell the story about this animal that is also a representation of the city I live in now. And also, the axolotl is supposed to be an animal that was, um, the original animal is the xolotl, it's a dog, and he's supposed to be in the stories we tell. He was supposed to be, a guardian of the underworld. And when there was a part on the of the Mexicas, when they asked him to, to give himself, to give his life, he just ran away. And he took this one to keep running away from that destiny. So a lot of people like have high appreciation for this animal and is in danger. So I was really happy to be able to add on to the story of this. And these are a few photos also of the story. These are the teams who are taking care of the ajolotu, a few of the horses who graze in Xochimilco, and the horses were brought by the Spaniards. That also tells a story. So always try to be very intent with the photos you take, why you're taking them, why a horse, why not a cow. Also, here's a view of Xochimilco. Xochimilco is in the southern part of Mexico, and it's the last remains of what the Tenochtitlan used to be. The Tenochtitlan now is the Zócalo, the downtown Mexico City, where everything is covered by a city. And this is like the last thing we have that is, a part of our history that's still there, the way people used to grow their food, the way people used to transport themselves. But unfortunately, it's also very polluted. So there are a lot of groups trying to, um, get it clean and get it in the right path so we can still preserve it. Here is a photo of the Tenochtitlan, and this is how the ancient Mexica city used to look like. And also something that we face as part of this type of construction that the Spaniards brought is that we have a lot of sinking because literally the city is like on the water, so the sediments are not great. So we try to show that. And also something that people are facing in Mexico City, ironically, is water stress. What happened was that during the conquest, um, before the conquest, the water was a means of, to feed the city. People would grow food, transport it, like people cohabitated with the resource. But when the Spaniards came, what happened was that it was turned into a means of disposal. So the rivers, instead of being used to get water, they start to be used to dispose, everything. So now that's the way it is, unfortunately. But also that's what happens is that we have water, but like water, one is not enough for the whole people, and two, a lot of water is like polluted. So we have to bring water from other states to have clean water. Also, some water, we still have some wells in the city that people extract water from, but like because there's so many people, it's not enough. So yeah, we tried to show that, and this is how the magazine ended up looking like. It was really nice. It was my first cover, so I was very, very happy, and they even sent it to me, so I was very happy about it. And finally, just to almost get wrapping into the end, sorry, I hope it's not too long. Just to say the storytelling and photography, how it has evolved. Something I constantly ask myself is ask, learn, and improve. So something I have noticed is that the visual language needs to evolve. I think because I didn't took photography classes, I just took what I heard, and it's like everything starts in the language, even in Spanish. So shoot, subject, gear, headshot, take. Like it's a language that can be very violent and extractivist. um, Language matters. Like sometimes I have never felt right telling someone my subject. So I'm trying to consciously change that. I feel that there's always room for improvement, and it's not like because it was right or wrong. It's just that the world changes, and it's good to evolve and try to question why we keep using certain terms that maybe not fit in these times. And also that consent is all about informed decisions. I have learned that consent is not all just asking someone, can I take your photo? Sometimes if you're going to spend time with this person, I think it's necessary for you to explain why you're there, like what are your plans, like you're getting into someone's life. So I try to, explain myself, tell where I'm coming from, why I want to why I want to tell their lives, because some people might be like, yeah, but why it's important that you tell my story. I think it's important just to be honest and transparent with people and tell them what you're doing. The other is collaboration instead of extractivism. Collaboration can have many faces and shapes. I don't think it's just one answer, but you can do, I don't know, maybe like ask them, hey, how would you like to be photographed? Hey, I have to tell this story, but I was thinking about this. do you think that fits, or do you think that's not like doesn't resonate with you? Like having those conversations and collaborate to create, I think is great. I don't think it takes away. I think it adds to your story. Also, that most of the time there is room for negotiation. This comes about editors in general. A lot of editors have either they don't like it's a money or a time thing. So I think there's always room to say, okay, I can do this under this budget, but I will ask for more time. So I always try to see how you feel comfortable working and ask for it, because like photography is your job, and like it's not because you're just doing it because of the money, but also is the way you get a living. So you have to try to find balance within that, and to not comply with probably I don't know, like practices that are exploitative. Also, always with your contracts. For example, I have my no negotiables that are like, if you're asking me for exclusivity, like, are you like you willing to pay for exclusivity, or others like a non-exclusive? So always read your contracts and be aware of the legal terms, and safety first always. Yeah, just I have taken photos of different topics, and some of them have been hard. Violence, drug policies, gender in particular is very hard too. And I have gone out of my way to get ready for those, and getting, HIPAA, getting different safety trainings. It could be also digital. So always try to draw like a good safety plan and let people know where you are. So, and I also left a resource. I put a bill of rights. I think you can find most of the resources there when it comes to either legals, either cultural. Um, so yeah, that will be my suggestion. So here's a bit of everything I sometimes cover. I sometimes cover migration, sometimes I cover culture, sometimes I cover climate change, gender. So I think the beautiful thing about our job is that we get to see so many stories and meet so many people, and like have such a view of the world we live in. And we're lucky for that. So it's our job to just, try to share that with the world the best way we can. And I'm probably sure this is going to come up. So I just wanted to share the gear. Um, so I used to use before just Canon, but then it got very expensive. And I now use Fujifilm. I'm honestly very happy with it. I have been using now primes. I switched from zoom to prime just to get out of that comfort zone and shake things a bit, and it has been great. I also love using my Ricoh. It's a great tiny tool, but also very powerful. And most of the times I use natural light. Sometimes I carry a reflector or flash, and continuous light if I'm doing still life. I prefer than flash. And I use Adobe Lightroom and Bridge. I know how to use photo mechanics, but I have never been very comfortable with it. So yeah, gracias. So any questions or whatever, I can answer
Was
that.
so awesome. Can I just say, like, you covered all the questions. I mean, I just finished writing a book with Tara Pixley called Critical
Mm.
Photojournalism that touches on all of your points that you made. Tara was one of the authors of the Photo Bill of Rights. And so in the book, there's a
Mm.
whole section on language. It's really good. And I hope that someday I can hand you one when you come to the States.
Oh, I love
Um,
that.
I want to thank everybody for being here. If you all have questions, please feel free to raise your hand or just shout them out. We're a little bit over time, so I think a lot of people need to take off.
I'm
Again,
sorry. Yeah, it was a
no,
bit
it was
long.
great. Are you kidding? Hi, Adia, do you have a question?
No, I just sorry, I have some insane construction going on, but I just wanted to say I really enjoyed your presentation. It was really well said, and I
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed the inspiring story.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you. Thank you
being
so
here
much.
so much. Yeah, it was amazing. I'm curious about the Fuji grant. How did
Mm.
you is this a grant that you reached out for? Like, what
No, it is a grant they have. It was funny because I found it like on Instagram app, and I was like, "What is this?" So I just got in, and they have now it has been running for like 4 years. I think it's
okay.
their fifth now. It's called GFX Fujifilm Grant, and they will lend you one of their medium format cameras and two lenses for like 6 months to do your story, and they will give you like 5 or 10K to do the story. Like there are two grants,
Wow, five or
regional and
ten
global.
thousand. That's amazing. What a
Yeah.
great, we just bought one of the 100 GFX cameras, the lower one, not the super expensive one for our
Yeah.
studio. So
Oh,
that's
it's so
great to
beautiful.
know. You get great access. I also was so impressed. I just want to thank you for showing us your notebooks, your notes, like the detail that you take down. This was really important for me to revisit because I haven't really been working for a long time like this. And
Yeah.
I loved making notes and going back and looking at them. And so the time and effort you put into your presentation, I really, really appreciate. The fact that you were in the room with the people, was it culturos or the cultos? The,
I think la cofradía de
claro,
confraternity.
the people with the hoods, right?
Mhm.
When they were washing their feet was amazing that you had that
Mhm.
access. That speaks a lot to your tenacity and your ability to connect. And then this notion of collaboration, right?
Mhm.
Like beautiful way to bring the community in and create a community engaged piece. On the Kel, what it's a sargasm is the name of it,
It's a
right?
macroalgae.
Sí, claro.
So yeah,
Okay, it's an
It's
algae.
good for the environment. The thing is like it's trans in the coast, and
Yeah,
it's not good. It gets rotten and a lot of animals die, and yeah, it's
I
crazy.
know, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been traveling to Tulum since the 80s, since I
Oh
was
my God.
young, young, young. And now it's like this Riviera thing that did not exist 40 years ago, but I'm sure that the tourist industry is freaking out. But I also appreciate how you brought the family perspective, like the other side, right? The not the big money side, but the like, how does this affect local fishermen and families that rely on the sea, the ocean for their livelihood? Yeah, I just can't thank you enough.
Thank you. No,
Yeah, again,
well,
if
I try to
anyone's
speak
got
more.
questions, I
Yeah.
think we're good. So
Mhm.
thank you.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Thanks, Kathy. I'm gonna quit recording.
Yeah.